We're live. Kim showed up. The woman's very prompt, right?
Hello, I showed up a couple minutes late, but I'm sorry.
That's
Here I
okay.
am.
Well, everybody's clock's a little bit different. Welcome to Kim. Welcome to all the people who are already in the chat. And let me mess with my camera. It moved right as I was so excited when Kim came in the studio. It messed my camera up. Um, we're going to talk about how this whole thing came about, kind of a conclusion on the 9 days. And some of it might be repetitive for those who've been here for 9 days, but it's okay. And you get some pictures of my dragon and my portal and ley lines and all the good stuff. So the first thing we're gonna do though is light the candles and get this sucker going. Okay, we're gonna put the add to the stream and make us tiny and it big. Okay, there we go. Equal day, equal night, balance of the light and the dark. As the daytime shortens to this point, the ley lines, the energetic nerves of the planet straighten out and stay in bounds. And that actually happened on the equinox, which was the 22nd. It's time for all of us to connect with the elements of our planet. In this time of rapid changes, and boy, is that an understatement, we pause to consider our own boundaries. And with this ritual, we consider where we have been and where we are going. Small rituals like this that are shared or small personal rituals help us connect with our evolving self and to connect and reconnect with the others. Love and hope, light and warmth, the world needs them all. And we're going to go light the candles.
Okay. Do mine the old-fashioned way.
Dr. Gale and I had kind of a kerfluffle, and we had to start 3 times, so we ended up burning up my automatic lighter.
Oh. Oh no.
So we're back to matches.
Well, here's my tiny. Yeah, I had to do a match as well. There's my tiny candle, so I'm ready.
Cool. She's ready. She's ready there with love and light. 6. I don't want to burn myself up here. You think I'd be really sophisticated at doing this as much as I've done.
On the 9th day, you think?
I never really get all that much better. This is 5, 6, 7. If we haul it, we can maybe do it with 1 match. 8 and 9. Oh, we're gonna make it with the last match. Good. No.
Smudged.
There we go. Okay, we got 9 of them. Yay. Okay. And as I was explaining to Kim, the reason I was going to do a kind of a 9 candles thing around the equinox. I kept thinking about it. And then 3 weeks ago, I was sleeping very nicely in my bed. And you were going to go away. And I woke up to this face in my bedroom. That's Cecil. He's a dragon. And he said, "You're coming with me." And it was a fascinating night. I flew around. He flew through major cities. It's really fun to fly in a dragon between buildings. It was great fun. And then he said, "But this is not what we've come for." And he said, "We're going here. And this is the portal he flew me through." And at the base of that portal was a very Tolkien-esque looking world, human, I mean, green and things Earth-like, but even more Earth than Earth. Mm-hmm. And and he said, "You get off here." And I was like, okay. I mean, I don't know how to get out of the portal, so I'm going to do what he says. And then as I was standing there, all these people and forms and critters and mythological beasts, the elementals, the fairies, the sprites, the unicorns, dragon-like creatures, somewhat like Cecil. A lot of the majestic images I had from being a child, of Celtic myths. All the creatures of the myths came out of the woods. And I said, okay. And they said, well, we're having a party. Come on. And I went in and they were dancing in the woods and they were doing different rituals. They were playing with stones. I was really interested in that because I mess with crystals a lot. And they were talking to me and they were saying, well, this is how we live. This is where we live. But as your vibrations get stronger, the human vibrations get stronger, you're going to be able to see us on the earth. And I went, okay. And then I got back on Cecil and went home, went to bed. And when I woke up the next day, I wrote it in my little dream diary and said, well, that was fun. And then apparently I didn't get the message. So 2 nights later, he's back and he says, we got to go do this again, girl. And I'm like, really? And he took me back. I mean, they were lovely people. It's not that. It's just like, 2 nights of disrupted sleep. So I get in and we they said they came out of the woods this time, but they were in more like their formal garb, like they'd wear it in their courts or wherever they, where they do their kind of ruling sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, you didn't get the idea. Why haven't you set up 9 candles to go to the equinox? And I said, well, okay, why? And they said, because that at the equinox and at the solstice, all of the ley lines, the earth energies, which is another thing I've been studying, go direct. They go into a straight line. And then after that, they weave a little bit. And there are geobiologists and all kinds of people that can tell you about this stuff. But if you look it up, it's there. And I said, yes. And they said, the earth is changing so quickly, and your people need to understand the 2 things you do. You work with small rituals and you work with crystals, and they need to understand why we, and we have too many of your people spend their life drifting into space and doing the ET thing, And they said, what you need to do is explain to them, they need to start understanding their intentions as they're based on the earth lines. And here's a map of ley lines. These are some of the ley lines that go across the U.S. And these are energetic streams, and you will not find them on a highway. You won't find a state marker saying ley line, this is over here. These are energetic lines, and they exist beneath us, but they move the Earth's energy around. It's kind of like a nervous system for planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And they want us to help heal it. So that's what this whole 9 candles is about. Getting people to be more intentional, getting people to heal, getting people to understand small things, gestures they can make in their everyday life, or just periodically, just like the Earth stops 4 times a year, it straightens its energy out and helps us. And so you are at the end of a long line of readers and people who work with this stuff, one of whom was on last night, who's Johan van Wyck, who actually works with these ley lines, and he actually connects them back to the stars they should be connected to, or sometimes they break because of tectonic shifts, and he puts them back together so they're whole. So weren't you kidnapped into a fun world?
I was going to say, you put on the person who knows the least about this on the 9th day.
No.
Is that the
No. You are, when you read, okay, I'll put this guy's name. I'll put this guy's name up so you can see who it is. I'm going to show this book. It's a little skinny book, right? Skinny little book. Anybody can read it. He's no longer alive. His name is Hamish Miller. He's from England. He actually lived in Cornwall. It's got a very interesting story. He went through a near-death experience, was sent him in to say, you have to explain earth energies to people. And he was a big businessman. And he was like, I got to do what? Did it. But he, in his book about how to use dowsing, how to use pendulums, how to use all the energies that are around us, one of the last things he gets to is what you do. Remote viewing and projecting your spirit out into the world to interpret it for people. And you're in here too, Kim.
Well, that is actually really good to know.
You just didn't fall in you didn't just fall off the cabbage truck, right?
Oh, yeah.
Um, so one of the reasons I want to have you here is because you have such a broad scope of energy. Like I tend to focus down into crystals and cards and stuff like that. And you remember when I took your course, I said I wanted to see if I could do what I do without the stuff.
Right. Right.
And you do the stuff with, I mean, you do the deal without the stuff. And I that always has impressed me incredibly much. So
Well,
one of the
thank you.
things we're going to, you know, the four elementals are earth, wind, air, and fire, and there are mythological beasts that are tied in our myths that are tied to each
Mhm.
of these. That's the other reason they told me they wanted me to work with them, because as a kid, I was such a fun child. I had a big fat book about this thick. It was the myths and legends from all over the world, and that was my reading that I do at night when I couldn't sleep. And so I have them through all different kinds of cultures and all different kinds of ways. That's why I cotton on to some of these things so much more quickly. But they said you need to get people to understand that, like what you do,
Mhm.
is tied to all this stuff too, and it's important to learn from it, work with it, and make it part of who we are.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and I think that we're all born with this. We all have some connection. We all have a connect. We're born with that connection, that divine spark. And I think
mhm,
that as we move into this, and as our lives get uh, difficult or complicated, or and then we see people leave, we see people pass away. Where did they go? And we're these searching creatures, right?
mhm,
And yet we have that divine spark in us all the time. It's always there. And when we start to, I always say that spirit never turns away from us. We turn away from it to
right.
be in this world and do what we do and get involved in the drama of it and everything. But whenever we're ready to turn back and start to discover again and start to make that connection again and use that connection again to do this kind of work, it's there. It's there for all. It's not, and different types of work are going to kind of fit different kinds of people. We're all very different, and
Mhm,
that is meant to be, because we all have different ways of looking at things and different ways of explaining things, and we need that. We need that. So I keep telling people, if you are a light worker right now, get to
mhm.
light working because it is the time. We are in the time where we need everybody. So, but and it's very interesting, Nancy, that you're talking about the elementals. You're talking about fairies and things like that, because um, next month in our book club, we're going to read a book by Maggie Hamilton. I can't remember the exact name, but it's all about fairies and elementals and her
Mhm.
own kind of
Cool.
experiences with the fairies her whole life. And I I was always very, very kind of when people started talking about mythical things, because we think of them as mythical. And
Mhm.
then one night I was doing some orb work, which, you think, why would I think anything was weird if I was doing orb work on my own? But I was. And I had seen a video that Terry, uh, Chapman did. She's
Yes.
wonderful. She's a
Yes.
photographer and she does amazing orb work. And I asked, as the orbs were kind of flying in and flying around, I said, can you show me fairy energy? Is there a fairy energy? Can you show
Mhm.
me what that is? And all of a sudden, they got teeny tiny and started moving around as fast as lightning. They just were moving towards me, around me. And they were
Mhm.
just tiny little lights. And that was fairy energy. So when I believe that you're right. I think that we're moving into a period where we'll be seeing this and seeing it on all levels, because of not only our ability to kind of move our vibration and move up that way, but also our technology. It's going to allow us to, if we seek it out, to find these things and see them in ways that we're comfortable with,
Yeah, that's one of the, when they were talking about trying to understand ley lines and all the interconnectedness, because it's like all the way back to the Druids, they felt there were 12 bands that held the world together. That's part of their myths. And a lot of where their 12 bands work kind of really connects to where we see ley lines most commonly. And, the ley lines connect up, they're like highways, and they merge together and they create super vortices places, one of which is Mount Shasta. That's the root chakra of the world. And, and I was talking on the first day I did this show, I was talking with Dorothy Morgan, who's a brilliant astrologer. And she and I were talking before we got on camera. And she said, I don't think I've ever been around. I don't know anything about it. So she looked up to find the ley lines in New Hampshire, which is where she lives. And she said, oh my God, the best vortice in New Hampshire was in a woods that was right next to a place she lived 20 years ago. And she used to walk in that woods, and she said it was the most different place I'd ever been to in my life.
Interesting.
And she said she would only go in if she took her roommate's dog with her, because she said she felt like she was being watched, but not threateningly, not like I'm going to jump out of the bushes with a knife, but just something was there.
Right.
And when Dr. Gale first moved to Mount Shasta, and I talked to her the first couple of days, and she said, they're watching me. I feel so watched. And now that she's lived in Shasta and she's gotten used to the energy, she said, it's keying up in your energy field. Something's there, but they're not really watching you. I mean, they're giving you energy and grace.
Right. And do you think that even if you're not, if you're not spiritually connected, or you're not really doing spiritual things, and you're very earth bound and very linear, how do you think people like that would feel the ley lines? Do you think they would feel them at all, or do you think they would feel them, or is it something that, I guess I'm just asking, is it something regular people just feel, or is it something that really sensitive people feel?
No, it's something everybody feels. And what happens is the degree to which you open yourself up to that vibration. That's what Johan and I were talking about, because Johan had no idea about this stuff. And 2 years ago, he had the equivalent from the spirit world of a dragon come tell him, you're going to go fix these things. And he's, I'm going to go fix what? And he had no idea, and he had to learn all about it. And now he's on a 2-month, well, he said it's going to be at least 2 months sort of vacation from doing any of the work he's been doing, any of the energetic work. And he said, when I wrote him and said, would you be part of my 9 candles? And I told him what had happened to me. He said, I think they are awakening. And he said, I think that people like Johan will feel it more. But even Dorothy, who, granted she was an astrologer, but she didn't know anything about earth energies. All she knew was that something in that woods. And she said it really was the most comfortable woods she ever walked in. And other people who are aware of ley lines where they are say it's a much more comforting place to be. But ley lines can also be negative. And so next month, I'm having an interesting man come and speak from England. He lectures over there. He teaches dowsing. And he's going to come and explain to people how they can go around their house with a pendulum and find if they have ley lines around them, or how to spot ley lines that might be in their area. But mostly he does what they call house clearings, where if you get a ley line that gets misadjusted or it's not running right, you can go and realign the energies yourself.
Oh, wow.
Kind of clear your space, Right. And that's the stuff that fascinates me, because I think sometimes people live in pain when it would be a simple fix to get them out of
Right.
it. So I
Yeah.
will.
Well, it makes me think, what about places like, and I know you're in the South, so you're in Texas, right?
Right.
You're in Texas. What is there a thing with ley lines with like um, southern states and northern states, or the I'm thinking of
Well,
the places that are a little more enlightened and places that are taking their time getting, getting to that
look at these places. You know, this is the Bermuda Triangle, but and there's Shasta
point.
and Sedona's up in this area, and that's a hot spot. But look at Texas. There's vast parts of this state that don't have that energetic connection. But there's
Oh.
one that goes here and it goes through Wisconsin and it goes to a place called High Holy Hill,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually a Catholic church. And Scott Allen, who's a reader up there, he went to check it out, and he found where he thought the energetic piece of it is. But what they're finding is most of these places where their lines cross, if you dig down through High Holy Hill had been an Indian mound, and the Indians had worshipped and studied there and considered it sacred. Where your daughter lives in England is an absolute hotspot. The British are so crazy about tracking ley lines that there's actually a Google function in Google Maps where you can go around and you can find the ley lines, recognize them energetically, and you can do a GPS and mark them. And so you can go to this town and see where the ley lines are the closest to it. But there's ley lines that go straight across England. There's one that kind of goes east west, and there's one that goes north south. And every major cathedral or every major stone circle is on those lines.
Oh, wow.
It's
Yeah.
really an incredibly powerful stuff. And maybe we don't know where ley lines are in Texas. I do know a woman who lives next to an Indian mound in West Texas, and it's actually one of the little spots on that map. And she said you can feel the sacredness walking with you when you go there.
Oh, wow.
And so I just want to get people aware of all that. I want them, and you know, I feel that when I work with the stones, I feel that the stones tell me how they should go together. I think the stones tell me numerologically how they should go together. And
Right.
there actually are in that Hamish book I was showing it, he talks about how if you go there and you like really map it all out, you'll find sacred geometry spaces in these, you'll find the shapes that are the
Oh,
ones that I use when I build my grids are
mm-hmm.
in those spaces. And they, if one of the ones that's a five-sided area, one where it's five-sided, five means means change. And
Mm-hmm.
so the one that's a five, it's always been an area where people came for a lot of change. And there's some parts of the world where people never lost track of them. Now, the reason the elementals went underground is because humanity became so tied to its 3D, 2D, 3D self that they couldn't stay up here with us. And but in the Maori legends in New Zealand and in Australia, they don't call the ley lines. They call them singing lines, and
Mm-hmm.
they march single file, singing these ancient songs in these areas. And one of the places that's always been sacred in Australia is Uluru, which when I was a kid we called it Ayers Rock. It's that big red thing in the middle of Australia, and it's a very sacred place. But the Maoris have, according to people who really go out and play with this stuff, they have the best connection to um, the the ley lines. It's because the ley lines also attach to stars. So this is like the cosmic internet, and that's been part of their faith and their belief system for for as long as anyone can remember, and they've kept all of their points tied to the correct stars. And that's one of the things Johann does. He said they got out of whack and he has to go realign them to certain stars. And when I sent him a documentary I watched about it, which is one I found on YouTube, and he said that was fascinating to him because that's the kind of work he does, but he didn't know there was any part of the world where they kept it going. We need these lines. We need this energy that you use. You ride that energy all the time to have your visions. I ride them all the time to connect people's energy and to set up stones or readings or whatever so that people can relate to them. We all need to understand it's not just a chosen few. It's something, the more of us that understand it, the more of us that have developed that belief system, that when the big changes start coming in 2024, and then everybody's screaming, oh my God, not more big changes, but they're going to be big ones in 2024. And it has to do with the shift of photonic energy, that we're out of that cloud and we're getting so many more subatomic particles are hitting the world than have. It's what leading to the vast solar flares. All those things are connected, and they're all leading up to a point where all this energy that's built up needs a way to be reflected out. And to do it, we can do it either by saying stubbornly nothing's going on and wait till it slaps us in the face, or we can surrender to beginning to understand it, to beginning to understand how we are all part of the one, and that when we get to that point of being all part of the one and really feeling it, it's not what I know in my head that's going to help me. It's what I know in my heart and the energy that spreads out from there. That's what's going to help.
Right. And it's so interesting. Well, because when we talk about the equinox, it's that equal day, equal light and equal darkness, and
Mm-hmm.
it's it makes me think of that, because it is that ultimate connection. We're all connected, but we all have these same kind of, we walk through life having the experience of experiencing the light and the dark, literally and figuratively, but that also is you would think it would be a great connector, for us all, but I think that's right. I think that's always the goal, is to remind us that we're all connected. I recently got a message that was, and my messages are very simple. They're not complex, Nancy. They're very simple. But it was that a lot of these things, a lot of these big kind of crazy things that are happening, from COVID to our crazy political stuff to the food shortages and all the things that we're going through, are trying desperately to teach us as human beings, spiritual beings here as human beings, how to share, and how to share, and how to remember that we're all connected. But very, very preschooly kind of things. That it's like, you still need to learn this. And so we're pushing you to be able to do this, to share, to connect, to treat each other with kindness. Very simple things, that you think through all of these centuries we may have learned, but it's very simple things that we're still having to learn.
Well, it's because we've been taught to overthink.
Right.
How many times have you heard an answer and you knew it was exactly the right one, and you go, oh, but that's too simple. How could it be that? No, I have to go.
That's the whole high school experience.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. When I was looking around for dowsing books, by the way, this thing's out of print, so if you find it, you're going to find it online through a used bookstore.
Okay.
But it's that thick, and
Right.
it covers. I don't know where it is, but I have a book that's about this thick that's supposed to cover the same information, but they go into so much friggin' detail, and you're like, just give me the answer. And I think the more we get to the point where we're willing to accept the answer, and the other part is we have to accept and understand, and not just think about it, but pull it into our heart.
Right.
How are we going to use this?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
And I'm fascinated that you're going to be reading a book about fairies. I think that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, and I hadn't thought about adding it, and then someone sent me the information, and I just felt like, I think that this would be actually really good. And for some reason, I feel like we need to know this stuff. So, and yeah, so it just kind of got added in, and yeah, we're going to be talking about that.
Yeah, I don't think it's any accident that you're here.
Yeah. No,
You know,
well,
and on this day on the 9 candles with
yeah.
what we're looking at. Because it's freaking me out. I'm reading all this stuff and it's making sense with sacred geometry, with crystals, with
Right.
numbers, the numerology, all the other things that I've studied and learned over time. It just kind of pulls them all together, and uh, it's like learn it now, or you too can have Cecil come visit your bedroom. I mean, he's a
Right.
lovely guy.
I think, yeah. And don't you think too that, there are all these different things, because you're mentioning, crystals and sacred
Mhm.
geometry and all of these things. It's I think that there are so many kinds of ways to be kind of pulled in, and it is what kind of what sparks your interest. Because I always
Mhm.
tell people to follow what you're interested in, because it's probably what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
If you're very, very interested in mediumship, follow that line and see where it goes for you, because most likely you're meant to be doing this, or you're meant to be part of it somehow. So follow that trail and see where it leads. And I think that the things you're talking about, and you have so many. It seems like one thing has led to the next for you. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
I've been interested in crystals, but what is this whole thing about ley lines? Where does it? And it's just been like this continuous, like, little map, I think, for you to understand what's going on, everything that's going on. And
Well,
I think it's always all like that for all of us. And some of us are more curious than others, because
one
you're
of
just like,
the
woo, I'll
well,
learn it
maybe if I
all.
could focus on something, I could be very successful. But one of the things is somebody one of the first groups where I was talking with the elementals, they said, "What about the fiery salamanders?" And I looked it up, and I looked at what the fiery salamander, what its symbol looked like, and I went, "Oh crap!" And I pulled out um my Rider Waite deck, and that's the salamander that's on all of the royals and the wands.
Oh,
It's
right, right.
it's the I mean, so it's like everything just keeps crashing back into everything, and it deepens your understanding of what they're about and what they're doing. So
That's
it's
yeah, that's it. And it is so interesting how everything is so closely connected.
mhm,
It really isn't. Really isn't leaps and bounds. It's really like a baby step to the
right.
next
And
thing. But how it's all very connected.
you just have to keep your mind open and say, "Oh, I've heard that before." So
Mhm.
how can I use it? Where can it go? And what is the name of the book that you're doing? Do you
I can't
remember?
remember the actual name of it. It's the secret. I think it's the Secret Life of Fairies. I think that's what it's called.
Okay,
There's like it's kind of a longer title, but it's by Maggie Hamilton, and
okay,
I think it's called The Secret Life of Fairies, or The Secret Lives of Fairies, something like that. But
okay.
yeah, I'm fascinated by the idea of this whole, because she has this whole journey, this whole arc of being involved with the fairies, pretty much her whole
Mhm.
life. And yeah, it seems like it's going to be fascinating. Yeah.
Well, in Findhorn, which is a city in the UK, um, it was built around a place where when they first started doing photography, they found fairies when they would take pictures of the wildlife around there. It's in the trees and in the bushes, and now a whole town's grown up around that, and a lot of psychics and well-known sensitives live there in England.
Interesting. Uh-huh.
And it's kind of a hotbed of, and they're not, some of them look very Tinkerbell like, some of them look pretty hardy. And then of course you have the fairies and sprites that live in the water, and they're in all the elements, and they help us keep balanced. And like I think I said, if you do feng shui, you've got all the four elements we use, and the Asians put in wood, the the product wood. It's a part of how they find to balance your
How
environment.
interesting. It's, I was going to ask you too, since we're talking about England and we were talking about ley lines as well. When I've done psychometry in England,
Right.
I've done it in the cemeteries. What's interesting to me is when I put my hands on like the stone, like a lot of, everything's stone and brick, but this stones for like the really, really old like pubs that are like from
Right.
early 1800s, late 1700s, some 1600s. It has, when I put my hands on them, they have almost such a powerful energy. It almost has a hum to it. It's almost like a hum comes through me. It's the weirdest thing. Do ley lines have a sound to them, or do they create?
I think if you open yourself up to them, they can.
Right.
And I mean, England is it's chock-a-block with ley lines, and of course they they really understand it, and they try to to make it a part of their motion of their lives. People understand it, and the one of the things, ley lines are tied to the Earth's core, which is where our Schumann resonance comes from. But in order to feel ley lines, in order to track them with scientific instruments, Rory Duff, who was one of the original geobiologists, and he's like in his 50s now. He's not that, maybe 60s. He's not that old. They had to make new instruments because we had no scientific instruments that could track them.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, and you're a sensitive, and you're going to feel it. You're going to feel. Did you ever go to Stonehenge?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the day we went to Stonehenge, it was so windy, and my youngest was 4 years old, and we were holding on to that kid because we sure it was going to blow away, And finally, the guy said, "You've been so brave to come out here today," and he let us cross the wire and go up and touch the stones.
Oh, wow.
Which they don't do for good reason, because enough people paw at those, there won't be anything left. But it was really incredible. Of course, I never knew if I was feeling all tingly because I was getting blown away, or if I felt all tingly because I was there. I'm sure it's because of the energy that's there. But I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna bring over a guy. I'm gonna put on my show a guy named Tim Walter, and he's the one who runs the school that teaches people how to dowse, how to clean, how to understand all that. And he was just, and there are dowsing things in the U.S. They don't dowse for this. They don't really dowse for this kind of stuff. There are a few places you can learn it, but not many. And people, when I started talking about a year ago, they were like, "How can I go learn to do that?" I know I talked to one architect who's actually had to move where houses were being built because the ley lines that went under them would have not been compatible with the family. And he told me that if you're walking through the woods and you see a tree with a big burl on it, that's where like a branch comes off, and normally they kind of heal up and there's like a little tree ring thing, and that's all that's there. But some trees don't heal that way. They have these big, almost look tumor-like things that grow on the side of the trees. And he said that's a tree that has planted its roots into a ley line. There's so much energy from the ley line, it won't let the tree grow correctly. And he said when he goes out in the woods, that's how he finds a line of ley lines. And so I have an old tree that's out near the creek bed by me that has one of those huge giant tumors. And I went up and I touched it, and I felt like what he said is right. But I live in Texas, so the chance of me finding another tree within close proximity, pretty rare. But
Right.
Wednesday, I'm going to have a show at my sort of 1 o'clock show with a young man who he lives in Mount Shasta, and he teaches people how to find trees that are portals.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, and this stuff's interconnected, and we just need to beginning really honoring the earth.
Right. And that, I just wanted to point out that somebody looked it up. I guess it'd be nice to know if I knew the books I'm actually going to be reading. Maggie Hamilton, Inside the Secret Life of Fairies, Where Dreams Come True. So it's a long title, so I'll forgive myself for not remembering all that. But that's the one.
And
now, the looking for or finding trees that are portals reminds me of the imagery in A Nightmare Before Christmas. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So there's the trees where you can open the door and go into the other world. Mm-hmm. I always think so often the imaginations of these amazing creators that create, whether it's art or movies or books, or that it's partly imagination, but it's also partly memory. I always think they're remembering something, mm-hmm. or they're reaching into that creative process. You're always reaching into the spirit mm-hmm. realm. You're always getting, but I always think those kinds of things I think are they know it somewhere. They kind of use it as an imagination thing, but they know that it's something that reflects reality in some way. It's something maybe we've forgotten, or that is not quite ready to happen yet. So it's almost like testing the waters in fiction to see, what do you think about this? Or what does this trigger for you? What do you mm-hmm. think about this?
Yeah, well, it's like in 2001, The Space Odyssey, when he lives out to the end of his human life in the care of the people that will take care of him from, mm-hmm. I guess they're intergalactic beings. And then they send him back to the Earth, as a fetus floating through the space, and they show the swirls. And I remember seeing that. And one time when I got really close to feeling really part of the one, that's what you do. You curl up like that little kid, and you just have your energy tie into the swirls without the benefit of better living through chemistry, because I don't do that.
Right.
It's me. It's me being me. But it's, I think it's fascinating, and I love, I'll tell you, if you've never taken one of Kim's courses and you're looking for something about mediumship, I totally would support. I would totally tell you it's a fun thing to do. And, you would think at my age I couldn't learn new tricks, but as obviously the universe is not done with me yet. So, and it's not done with you, young lady, either. And you're already doing it. So you're already bringing the fairies in and the other.
Yeah, it's very interesting how that came about. And so and at this point, right, you kind of just go with stuff. If something calls out to you, kind of just go with it and just see what's this about, because it's calling out to me for some reason. And it's nice when you can get, for anyone, if you can get into that mode of just why not? Why not just see what this is about? Because the more that you can, the more open you can be, the more things. It's so funny because the more things make sense, but also the simpler things get. Like I said, mm-hmm. I get this message about, listen, all of this is just trying to teach the earth how to share and cooperate. That's really it. And that's all we're trying to do right now is share and cooperate, get you guys to do mm-hmm. what you need to do so you can go to the next level and do things that you need to do. So we're just, kind of supporting these experiences that may seem mm-hmm. horrible in the moment, but they're trying to teach us desperately. The more hard-headed of us.
And you really have to watch out for the signs. One of the things I just realized is in the middle of I always have a stone in the middle. That's a fairy stone. That's a kind of geo that has a very, very light. And I forgot to say that at the beginning of the lighting. But anyway, so you're doing books on fairies. And I think fairies are a much more approachable group to start dealing with.
Yeah,
I know everybody thinks they want a unicorn, but I'm sure.
Well, and you mentioned I just want to say, because you mentioned it, that we're on Saturday. Yeah, this coming Saturday, we have an all-day mediumship workshop. So if you've never done mediumship before, if you're just interested, do it. I'll give you I'll send you the link, Nancy, and
Okay.
or you can just email me at intuitiview@gmail.com and I'll send you the link. But we did it when we did an intuitive workshop. It was 10 to 4 Pacific time, 10 to 4. And we weren't sure because we weren't sure if we would be absolutely spent by the end of the day, but it was a blast. It was so much fun. So anyway, I just wanted to let people know since you mentioned
I'll
it.
let people know that right now I'm teaching a course for people who have my gardens, which I do the stone casting into. And on Saturdays, it'll be Saturday, not this next week, but after that, I'm going to have another workshop in it. I will send an invitation to anyone who's a subscriber on my channel to come and see. So if you're not subscribed, you're not going to get the invitation. But we did the most fun stuff. I picked questions out I'd gotten out of readings over the week, including a woman who decided Santeria had sent a black pigeon to her house. When we looked at it, we went, no. There's a lot of that down here in the South. Anyway, but we took a look at different situations I'd had to look at and they were just rolling in the garden and seeing what they rolled. And one of the women that's in the group has the possibility of maybe starting another business, but she's retired. She's not sure if she wants to go back to work. She got all kinds of go for it. It's true. Yes, you got to do it. I mean, by the end of that thing, if she doesn't try it out, at least try it out. It's going to be kind of weird. But we also read on a client of mine that I've known for 10 years. And I just said, who is this person's name? And they read about her. And it was good for me to hear what they said because I had an hour-long conversation with her today. She's a bright young businesswoman in an incredibly interesting position right now in her career. And I mentioned things they mentioned to me to her. And she said, oh my God, that's right. That's really how I feel about this. And these women who are older than she is said, yeah, we remember we used to feel like that in business. She needs to let that go and stuff. By the end of our conversation, she said, this is one of the best conversations we've ever had. So if you want to come see how stones work and how that works and bring along your questions and stuff so that I can get my Oracle gardeners, my happy gardeners, practice something to practice on. Just go subscribe to my channel and I'm going to send out a thing to everybody who wants to come and join.
Oh, that's awesome. I would love to I have to look at my schedule. I don't know what I'm doing Saturday. What is the time for that?
It'll be, it's between 1 and 2 my time, which is 11 to 12 your time.
11 to 12. Okay. I'm going to look and see what I'm doing because I would love to do something like that.
And it's really funny because you think, how are these stones going to tell me anything? But when you have 10 different people roll and a whole bunch of them get the amethyst all ends up in the same spot, or, then you start to see there is a universal pattern here.
Absolutely. And I love the grid that you sent me, Nancy. They're so powerful, especially when it's something personal like that, where it's personally for you and it's done to your, however you did it. I'm not even going to imagine how you did it, but it is really, really powerful stuff. And it's amazing. And to have it in your, you showed it to me online. And I'm like, oh, that's very pretty. But when it came and when I held it in my hands, I'm like, this has power. This has power. I can feel it. So, so thank you so much for sending me that. I just want to let you know that they're amazing. They really are.
If you want a preview of what my grids look like, if you go to crystaldirections.com, my website, I have a slideshow and there's 130 of them up there. I've done 160 now. I just need to get the last 30 or so up there. But they're all individually made. I get people who write me and say, I like that pink one. Can I have that pink one? No, these are made from natural rocks, guys. Those rocks were the ones that meant to be put together there. There's no other way to explain it. And actually, I am going to try and I'm going to be working with a numerologist who wants me to explain how numerology works with it. But I'm going to build a grid for her. We're going to go through the whole process on camera.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And then I'll build the grid, get it up to Canada as fast as I can. Hopefully, Louis DeJoy will not be in charge of the mail, so things will get there. And then 2 weeks later, we're going to go through. She's going to fire it up, and she's going to explain how she feels. And I'm going to explain to her why everything is where it is. That'll
Wow.
be in
That's
January
great.
because I need
That
to build
sounds
up some
amazing.
steam to do that. That's going to be. But anyway, thank you so much for coming. I
Oh, you're
try to
so
keep these
welcome.
things less than an hour. I could sit here and talk about my current my kids. Oh, the day that I got the message, you've got to go talk about the dragon. I talk to my kids about everything because I figure they're going to put me in the home at the end of it all, and they need to know. But they and they said, "Are you going to talk about that on your channel?" And I said, "I'm not sure." Well, I was still debating in my mind after Cecil had taken me back, and they said, "This is your job now." I got in my car to go to the post office to mail off some grids, and I looked to the side of my car, and there was a completely gold from its most far out antennae to the end of its tail dragonfly. Dragonfly is my spirit animal, completely gold. And I've never seen a completely gold dragonfly before. And it's not like I live by a pond or anything.
Oh, right.
This dragonfly was flying out over hot black asphalt, and it was a 90 some degrees. And I looked around and I went, okay. And it just flew in front of my car till I got to the cross street that turns to get out of the townhomes I live in. And then it was gone. And so I said,
Oh my
okay, I don't want that thing following me around the house.
Oh, I'm so glad you told that story. And I think that, there have been times like that when I thought, should I mean, some things I haven't shared. Some things I think it's either not time or it's too sacred still, and I want to hold
Mhm,
on to it for myself just a little bit longer. But I
mhm.
think that when you do share things like that, the people that need to hear them and embrace them and uh, go and do something with them or figure
Mhm.
out something with them, they will. And the people that think, oh, I don't get that, or that's weird, whatever, it's just not, it's not for them yet. Maybe one day they'll look back and they'll say, oh my gosh, I totally relate to that now. But it's just not time yet. And it's not a better or worse thing or a you know anything like that. It's just, but I think that's why you do share it, is because those people that need to hear that, or that it's their time to hear that, or their time to understand that, that's who it's for. So
And
I'm so glad you do.
I think we're all getting cracked open
Yeah.
like a
Oh,
walnut at this
absolutely.
point. And so the more of us that understand these things are really happening, the better off we'll be. Well,
Yeah.
blessings to you,
You too,
um,
Nancy.
Kim. And we figured out about 3 days into this, I should have called this set of 9 candles Riding the Dragon.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, when you do that book for your thing about dragons, I'll bring Cecil.
Absolutely. I would love that.
Okay, I'm going to cut to the candles and we're going to say goodbye.
Okay.
And we're going to say goodbye to us. I'm going to cut you off first because I can still hear you if you want to talk. But I
Okay.
don't blow the candles out. Candle day 1 has already blown itself out, but I let them burn down. And that's what
Okay.
you do. The idea of a candle is if you light a candle with a blessing attached to it, the whole time it's burning, its flame and its heat is sending it up to heaven. So
I love that.
this is the end of this 9 candles. Yay!
Good
And
job,
somebody
Nancy.
put into the chat how to find your classes. So,
Oh, great.
okay.
Thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you everyone for being here, and we will see you later. Bye.